Convening the Committee on Higher Education and Technology. Today's date is March 20th, 2024. We're in room 309. To my right hand, we have Vice Chair Rep. Capella, and to my left, we have Representative Martin. We are going to hear three bills and 3 resolutions today, but to get us started, I wanted to remind folks on Zoom to keep yourself muted, please, and your video off while you're waiting to testify, and after your testimony is complete. The Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with the technical staff only, so please use that chat for technical issues. If you're disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. So please note that the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. So in the event of a network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule this hearing or to schedule a meeting for decision making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. Please avoid using any trademarked or copyrighted images in your background, and for everyone, please refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from the hearing without the ability to rejoin. So to get us started, we're going to begin with SB 2284 relating to a wildfire forecast system for Hawaii. This would establish a 2-year program at the University of Hawaii to develop a wildfire forecast system for the state using artificial intelligence. First to testify on our list is Brennan Morioka from University of Hawaii in support in person.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. I'm Syed Batini, a faculty member with the College of Engineering at UH Manoa. I'm here today on behalf of Dean Brennan Morioka. He apologized for not being able to be here today because he's traveling out of the state. We submitted a testimony in support of this bill, and we stand by it, strongly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We also have written testimony provided by the Democratic Party of Hawaii and the Maui Chamber of Commerce, the first in support, the second with comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Okay. The next measure on our agenda is SB 2502, relating to the generation of wildfire susceptibility maps for Hawaii. It requires the University of Hawaii to establish and implement a 2-year program to develop Web GTS wildfire susceptibility and vulnerability maps for the state to determine which communities, landscapes, buildings, and infrastructure are most vulnerable to future wildfires. First to testify on this measure, we have, again, Brennan Morioka from University of Hawaii in support in person.
Yes, again, we submitted a testimony, and we stand by it strongly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Similarly, we also have testimony in support from the Democratic Party of Hawaii and testimony with comments from the Maui Chamber of Commerce. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Moving on to SB 2513, relating to wastewater systems. This would establish a 3-year new wastewater system and individual wastewater system technology demonstration and implementation pilot program within the University of Hawaii Water Resources Research Center to examine and demonstrate new wastewater and cesspool technology systems. Implement those technologies in demonstration projects in areas across the state that are identified as priority level 1 in the 2021 Hawaii Cesspool Hazard Assessment Prioritization Tool Report, 2021 report and technical appendices, and establish similar prioritization categories for the islands of Molokai, Lanai, and Niihau. It requires the University of Hawaii Water Resources Research Center to submit annual interim reports and a final report to the legislature. First to testify on this measure, we have the Department of Health with comments in person.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and Representative. Joanna Sito from the Department of Health Environmental Management Division. The department stands on its written testimony, commenting, and I will be here if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next to testify, we have Charlie Taylor, DLNR, in support in person.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, Representative. Ryan Kanakole, Department of Land and Natural Resources, subbing in for Charlie Taylor. The DLNR stands on its testimony and support and is here for any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have Ted Bolin, Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition, in support in person.
Thank you, Chair Peruso, Vice Chair Capella, members of the committee. Ted Bolin on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition in strong support of this bill. Hawaii's got a big wastewater pollution problem, specifically with cesspools. By law, they're supposed to be upgraded by 2050. We need to do it in the most most affordable and environmentally successful way. And to do that, we need some studies and implementation project like this to make sure that the projects work in Hawaii. This is all the way from individual wastewater systems up to packaged treatment plants. And it's really important that we study these before we go ahead and start upgrading. The bill also includes an appropriation for 2 positions at the Department of Health, which I think are necessary in order to implement the program. So both those elements are good. This pilot is essential to determine the best and most affordable wastewater technologies to minimize the cost of cesspool upgrades while maximizing environmental protection. I urge the committee to adopt the bill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for questions.
Thank you so much. Next to testify, I'm not sure if he's available on Zoom, but it's Stuart Coleman with VI in support. Okay. That concludes the testimony that was submitted on this measure. Members, are there any questions? I have a question for the Department of Health. I saw you lean forward, Mr. Bolin. You thought I was going to ask you a question.
Hi.
Hi. So I saw that you noted and you provided appropriation amounts
Yes.
for the 2 positions, which I appreciate, and we'll include that in the committee report. But I'm also wondering if these positions are going to be difficult to fill, or if that universe of people is, pretty broad.
The universe of people is very broad. However, yes, it will be difficult to fill because we are still with a shortage of engineers. We are looking at finding people who would be interested in helping and continuously recruiting.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask UH a question. I guess I'm going to ask you another question, Department of Health. So Stuart Coleman, in his testimony, had asked that UHC grant also be brought in as a partner. And I'm wondering, my inclination is not to amend the bill to include that language, but to note that intention in the committee report. And I'm wondering if including UHC grant would make implementation of this measure more difficult.
I believe that they have a good working relationship, so I think it should be okay. But it would be best to check with them to see if including them on the measure would be beneficial or not.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to HCR 152, HR 131. This resolution urges the my mistake. The Hawaii Tourism Authority, in consultation with the Office of Enterprise Technology Services, to conduct a study on the social and safety impacts of geotagging. To testify on this measure and on the HCR, we have the Hawaii Tourism Authority with comments in person.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Member, Junior Member over there. I hope she comes for quorum. Ilihia Johnson for the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Mahalo for the opportunity to provide these comments. Oh, aloha, Member. Apologies for submitting this written testimony a little late, so I'll quickly summarize it here so you have it. So we appreciate this committee's consideration of the social and safety impacts of geotagging. The core of the issue identified by this resolution is the lack of appropriate infrastructure to accommodate large numbers of people in those places where people are welcome, and conversely, the enforcement mechanisms to prevent the unwelcome entry of people into places where visitation is not appropriate. Resolving that issue goes beyond geotagging technology. However, the better understanding we collectively have of all contributing factors, the better the solutions we can pursue together. Certainly that strikes at the core of destination management, which is one of our main focuses at the Hawaii Tourism Authority, the education to stay on the marked trails, stay out of dangerous situations, and so on. Should this measure advance, my fiscal people would be very mad if I didn't mention that we note that funding for such a study would be required, as we don't have those resources in-house to complete such a study, understanding that that's typically not a thing in resolutions, but I said them. So, of course, we would request that funding be appropriated for that study should this advance, and we appreciate the opportunity to offer these comments and available for questions. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Members, seeing no other testimony on this measure, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next resolution, which is HCR 203, establishing a working group to evaluate the effectiveness of the University of Hawaii Community College's summer tuition pilot program. And on this measure, we have one testifier in support from the Legislative Reference Bureau with comments. Is there, and I'm not seeing that person in person. Is there anyone who would like to testify in this measure? Okay. Moving on to our last measure, HCR 205, HR 185, urging the University of Hawaii to adopt and publicize a statewide equity statement. On this measure, we have one testifier, Deborah Halbert, University of Hawaii, in support in person.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Debbie Halbert, Vice President for Academic Strategy. We stand on our written testimony and support. We really appreciate the legislative effort here. We are working on an equity statement. In fact, the committee this morning was doing edits because they were very excited about the work coming out of this particular body. So thank you. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? I have a quick question. Professor Halbert. So can you outline for the committee and for the public just a brief summary of why this work is important for the university as a whole?
So it comes as no surprise, I'm sure, to you to know that the University of Hawaii system is a very diverse student body. Nationally, there has been an assault on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, just yesterday, Alabama passed out of its legislature a bill that would prohibit the discussion of divisive issues on campuses, and if it's signed into law, it would mean radically changing not just what the campuses do in terms of their outreach to students, but what they teach. There are over 22 different states that are entertaining similar kinds of legislation, so it is an honor to be in a state that is instead looking towards how we can open up the university to students who have been historically underrepresented in the university system, and the university, of course, is committed to those issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion as well, so we're trying to craft that language in a way that can demonstrate to the citizens of Hawaii that we welcome them all.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Members, are there any other questions? Seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making. Reconvening for decision making. Thank you, members, for your attendance. On the first measure, the chair's recommendation on SB 2284 is to simply pass out as is. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on SB 2284, SD2, HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative LaChica, excused. Representative Martin? Aye.
Representative Chica is here.
Present. Right on time. Representative Martinez is excused. Representative Matayoshi is excused. Representative Mizuno?
Aye.
Representative Quinlan is excused. Representative Todd?
Aye.
Representative Woodson? Aye. Representative Garcia? Aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. On the next measure, SB 2502, SD2, HD1, same recommendation, pass out as is. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on SB 2502, SD2, HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is, noting the excused absences of Representatives Martinez, Matayoshi, and Quinlan to stand for the rest of Representative Matayoshi is present, but the other two for the remainder of the hearing. Is there any reservations or no's? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. On SB 2513 SD2 HD1, my recommendation will similarly be to pass out as is. However, in the committee report, I'd like to both note the amounts that were requested by the Department of Health for the two positions, and also to note that this committee urges the University of Hawaii Water Resources Research Center to work with the Department of Health and UHC grant to conduct this pilot project. Members, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on SB 2513 SD2 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any reservations or no's? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. On HCR 152 HR 131, noting the concerns of HTA about the need for funding for this kind of study, we're going to note that in the committee report, but my recommendation is to pass out as is. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on HR 131, HCR 152, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any reservations or no's? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. This next measure, HCR 203, establishing a working group to evaluate the effectiveness of UH's Community College Summer Tuition Pilot Program. Again, I'm going to recommend that we pass out as is. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on HCR 203, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any reservations or no's? Reservations, Representative Garcia. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And on our last measure, HR 185, HCR 205, urging the University of Hawaii to adopt and publicize a statewide equity statement. Same recommendation, pass out as is. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on HR 185, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any reservations or no's? No vote, Representative Garcia. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And thank you, members. We are adjourned.